Namaste and welcome. It's Rishi here from meditatewithrishi.com, and today we are going to be speaking about karma, or more specifically, the law of karma. Okay? Now, you may have a somewhat of an understanding of what the law of karma is. We speak about it so much these days. So what I want to do is take a bit of a deep dive into this for people that want to perhaps understand more intricately, how does this law actually work, right? What are the fundamentals that it is based on? And most importantly, how can I use it to improve my quality of life, okay? Now, this is a vast topic, so I'm going to do a few videos on this to give you more of an all-round experience. Today's video is going to be very simple, the beginning, the basics of what is the law of karma, okay? And maybe you learn a thing or two that you didn't know already, all right? So let's get into it. What is karma? Now, to understand the law, we need to first understand what karma actually means. So the word karma is a Sanskrit word which means action. It simply means action, okay? So what is action, right? Anything, any type of movement is an action. So you eat a banana, that's an action. You blink an eye, that's an action. You say something to somebody, that's an action. You have a thought, that also is an action, right? So it's not just the physical actions, it is also, a thought is a mental action, right? There is some movement happening in the mind. So this is a karma as well, okay? So as long as there is existence, as long as human beings and animals are living, right, there's going to be movement, and all of that movement essentially is karma. It is all action. It is all karma. Okay. So what is the law of karma? Now, the law of karma is the law of cause and effect. Okay. So you've heard many different variations of this, like you reap what you sow. These sayings that we've grown up with, they definitely convey the essence of karma, right? That whatever you do comes back to you. You reap what you sow. Essentially, all this covers the essence of karma. But sometimes we wonder, like, why does this happen, right? So why is it that something I do will come back to me? I'm sure there's some people that don't even believe that there is a law of karma, right? So they're probably thinking, why? Why is it that if I do something, it's going to come back to me? What is the actual logic behind it? Okay, so this is really important to understand. So I'm going to try and explain this in a very simple way, because it is very simple. So this diagram here is a simple, a simple diagram showing you the spirit, essentially, right? The universal self. And within that, all these different dots are the individual selves. So this is all of us, different forms, humans, animals, essentially, right? That are living entities. And we're all part of this universal whole, okay? So the idea is that we are all one. We're all connected, okay? So what does this mean? So if you take clay, right? If you use clay as a core substance. Now from this clay, you can make many different things. You can make a teapot, a vase, you can make a little hut, you can make a candle stand, you can make so many different things, right? But ultimately, these different objects that have been made from the clay, ultimately, at their core, at their root, they are just clay, right? They've not become any other substance. They're just clay, essentially. So in the same way, all of us different beings, right? Humans, animals of different shapes, different forms, different colors. We are all made up of the same thing. And that is spirit, ultimately, right? So this is why we are all connected. We are all one, all right? Now, because we are all connected, right? And spirit is this, it is conscious, it is living, we're living, right? So the action of one part of that spirit affects the whole. A small change in one part affects the whole. And an action of the whole affects the one, essentially. Right? We see this in the universe as well. Let's say an asteroid hits a planet. So that causes some impact, it causes something. And for that, the entire the entire makeup of the cosmos has to change. And this happens naturally through natural laws, right? For everything there is an effect. You have essentially a glass of water and you put one drop of ink into it. The whole glass, the whole water has to change, essentially, right? So this is the same thing. We're all one, and an action of one impacts the whole, and the actions of the whole impact the one. Okay, so this is pretty simple. I'm sure that makes sense. Okay, so what this means essentially is that the state of the world right now is simply an accumulation of all the thoughts and actions of everybody in the world, right, that has lived. The state of the world right now is the accumulation of essentially all the beings that have lived up till this point, what they've thought, what they've done, essentially, right? That is the state of the world right now. In the same way, the state of your life and my life is also the accumulation of everything that we as individual beings have done since time immemorial, okay? But we're not talking about just your current life, because remember, you are spirit. This body is just a form that you have taken. You are spirit, right? And that spirit has lived so many different lives, done so many different things, thought so many different things. And your life right now is an accumulation of all that, essentially, okay? So what, right? So what are we trying to understand over here? Now, ultimately, we all want just one thing. We want to be happy. We want to improve our life. We want to, live a life that is just free of suffering, ultimately, right? So if we look at it through this lens, then what we need to do, if our current life is the result of all our past actions, if our current life is a result of all our past actions, then our future is the result of what we do right now, what we think and do right now, right? So this is what we need to do. We need to basically, to change the future, we only need to change what we're doing now. We don't need to worry about everything that's happened till now. That's no longer in our control. That's the past, right? Forget about that. What can we do now to change the future? Okay, so this is where it becomes important to understand what is actually a good action and a bad action. What is a right action and a wrong action, okay? So a lot of the times this is common sense. What is right and wrong is common sense. But a lot of times it's not, it's not common sense, right? So for example, for some people, for a lot of people, right, eating meat, they genuinely may not believe that they're doing something wrong. They genuinely may not believe that. But does that mean that it makes it okay? So let's explore this in a bit more detail, okay? What is a right action and what is a wrong action? So the definition I'm giving you right now is from a book called Life is Fair, written by the Radhaswami Foundation. It's a beautiful book. I definitely recommend that you read it, right? But here's the definition. So a right action, okay, there's two conditions for a right action. Not two conditions, but there's two things that define a right action. So either it is something that takes you closer to spiritual understanding, to spiritual realization. Okay? What is spiritual realization? It's realizing simply that we are all one, we are all connected ultimately. It's got nothing to do with religion. Okay? It's just realizing that we are all one, oneness, becoming one with the universe, right? So something that takes you closer to spiritual realization is a right action, okay? Or something that improves the well-being of others, okay? So right action is one which takes you closer to spiritual realization or improves the well-being of others. Okay, so let's take an example. One thing we all know to be a good deed is charity, okay? So charity, how does charity take you closer to spiritual realization? Because when you donate something of yours, you are seeing the other person as equal to you or as important as you. Their welfare is really important, right? So that it imprints in the mind that we're all one, we're all one, we're all one, right? Secondly, does it improve the well-being of others? If you donate something, it might give you something that you need, and it improves your well-being, right? Of course it improves your well-being, right? So that's the right action. Okay, now obviously the intention needs to be pure there, right? If you're doing it and then posting it on social media, you know, for everyone to see that, oh, look, he's such a good person, then that becomes a bit, it makes the action impure then, right? Because it's not completely for good. It's not that it doesn't remain a good action, it remains a good action, right? But maybe some of the brownie points you're going to get on that from the universe will will be reduced, right? If there's some selfish motive there. But ultimately, the reason why charity is a good action is because it fulfills both of these conditions. Okay? Now, what is a wrong action? A wrong action is the opposite of that. A wrong action is one that takes you away from spiritual realization, okay, and harms the well-being of others. So wrong action will take you away from spiritual understanding and harm the well-being of others. So one example I can think of here is eating meat, okay? And this is, by the way, this is not a jab at people that eat meat. I used to eat meat, right? This is just a neutral way of looking at things. So firstly, when we eat meat, right, we are eating another being. We're eating another being that is a part of this whole. And we're mentally telling ourselves that this being is not, it's different from me. It's separate from me. So it's okay for me to kill it and eat it, right? It's separate from me. So that automatically takes you away from spiritual understanding, because spiritual understanding is that we're all one, we're all connected, okay? And does eating meat harm the well-being of others? Of course it does, right? It harms the animal. You are killing it. It's being murdered against its will, and it goes through a lot of pain, suffering, fear, essentially. So naturally, that becomes a wrong action, okay? Now, this is a simple understanding. So what we want to do now, if we want to improve our life, what we want to do is we want to increase the number of good actions, the number of right actions that we perform. So when we are embarking on this journey called life, right, the things that we do every single day, it's nice to just take note and see that which one of my actions are good and which ones are bad, and how can I improve this, essentially, right? So ultimately the idea is that what you want to understand is that your life right now is not broken, right? Your life is not, if you're in a situation where you're not happy with how things are, it doesn't mean that your life is broken. It doesn't mean that, you know, something bad has happened, something catastrophic that wasn't supposed to. No. Whatever has happened is it's just a chain reaction of cause and effect, cause and effect. So something may have happened in the past that has led to this reality that you have right now. And there's nothing wrong with that. It is just normal. It is just nature's law, right? So there needs to be a bit of detachment from that. It's something personal. You know, there's no man sitting up in the sky looking at you and saying, today I'm going to bully this person. And, you know, like, that's not how it works, right? It's just cause and effect, cause and effect, cause and effect. So if we want to improve the reality, right, we want to perform more of what are these right actions, ultimately. We want to purify our thoughts. We want to purify our actions, right? Become very conscious about what we're doing. How is it affecting yourself spiritually? How is it affecting others, right? Their welfare, how is it being affected? And the key is to do this without expectation. Because remember, the law of karma works whether you expect it to or not, right? So just because a baby doesn't know that, you know, the law of gravity is there, if it falls off the sofa, it's going to fall to the floor, whether it expects it or not. So in the same way, with the law of karma, why do something and expect some benefit to come from there? If you've done something good will come. That is the law, right? That is the law. If you've done something good will come. So our job is not to expect. Our job is just to selflessly do the action for the sake of doing the action, right? Because it elevates us spiritually and it improves the welfare of others, essentially. And that is ultimately just the simple way to live life, right? It's not always easy. It's not always easy, but it is simple, essentially. So I hope this makes sense. This is a kind of brief understanding of the law of karma, right? You probably knew a lot of this stuff. Over the next couple of days, we're going to